medical director of Mercy One Cancer Center, and I'm the founder of Above and Beyond Cancer. Welcome to our weekly cancer education series. It is funded in part by a grant from the Iowa Cancer Consortium. And with us tonight is my video podcast partner for the evening, Mia Buch.
Hello,
Welcome
everyone.
to everybody. So Mia is from Des Moines.
Yes.
She went to Lincoln, and then she got her degree at Des Moines Area Community College, and she is really multi-talented. She is an artist, she is an art educator, and she is the Des Moines Art Museum educator.
Yes. Yep. My title is Museum Educator at the Des Moines Art Center.
There we go.
Yes.
And so museum educator, that sounds really nice.
It is very nice.
Yeah.
It's a very broad idea because museums themselves are educational. So what is a museum educator but a person who creates opportunities for people to experience a museum?
Yes.
I create bridges and programming and content that help people access the Des Moines Art Center.
You know, it's even the word museum sounds kind of sterile, boring.
Yeah.
But when you talk about being educated, whether it's an art museum, art center, history museum, the Smithsonian, sometimes just wandering around by yourself can be a bit overwhelming.
Absolutely.
But to get involved in a more active encounter.
That is what I'm positioned to do, and I love doing that.
Great. I have to say, so I'm on the board of directors for the Arts Center. I have nothing but appreciation for the Arts Center. I'm one of those, though, when I first got acquainted, first went to art museum, like my first trip as a young person to Paris and to the Louvre, it was like just running sort of nonstop from one celebrity piece of art to another celebrity piece of art. So you can kind of say you saw those celebrity pieces of art, which is not really the best way to enjoy a museum.
No, not at all. And not just to enjoy, but to get an experience out of it, to get anything out of it. One, it's not enjoyable. You're going to get what they call museum fatigue. But two, what is your goal for being there? And that's one thing that I want to explore with people is, why do we go to museums? What do we get out of it? And it's important to explore those things for yourself, but then, we can have conversations and explore those things together. What you were describing, which when I give tours, I call that the art conveyor belt. Like, you see people at a museum and they stand in front of one painting and then they take a step this way and they stand in front of the next painting and they just move along. And it's as if they feel like the goal of a museum is just to spend a little time in front of something, or maybe read its label, maybe understand it a little, or, look for the things you recognize. And I think it's just because so many people don't get the opportunity to be shown or have someone facilitate for them what else they can do at a museum, what else they can do with art.
And that leads me to say, so why are we going to have a talk about the best way to go to a museum? And so let me give a bigger context. So why are we doing this talk here at our cancer education series? And so we believe that there is great healing power to art. There can be healing in creating art, and there can be healing in the witnessing of art. So there is a formal counseling profession called art therapy, and that's a counselor, a mental health counselor, who uses art in part of the individual mental health counseling. But we're talking about something different. We're talking about the healing power of art. How can creating art or appreciating art, surrounding yourself with art, have the ability to heal, to make us feel better?
Yes, absolutely. And to add enrichment in our lives.
Yeah. So when did you first understand personally the healing power of art?
I love that question. I think, as a young person, art was really important to me to discover my own identity. I used art as a form of self-expression when I was young, and I I think that a lot of people find that when they're young. A lot of young people, like even pre-words, we can draw things that express what we're thinking and what we're feeling. And as an adult, I've learned that for a lot of people, something along the lines taught them that they weren't an artist, so they stopped making art. And so I know as an adult, the healing power of revisiting art, even if though it's something that I might not have done for a long time, or I've seen the impact in other people. And then when it comes to viewing art and the impact that has, it was when I was a student at DMAC, and I was in a humanities class, and we were assigned to go to the Des Moines Art Center. And I'm from Des Moines, and I never really visited the museum before. I was, 21 years old, and I hadn't ever, like even as a child, visited the art center, even though I've always loved art and I identified as an artist as a young person. But I remember walking into the exhibition. I specifically remember which one it was. It was an artist named Cecily Brown, and her works are so luscious and detailed and stunning, and the things that you find within them are so evocative, and I can remember exactly how it felt. And her works are huge. And I remember walking into the space, and I sat on the floor right in front of a work, and I just let it surround me. And I was writing, because we were supposed to write a paper, and it was just so easy to write about this. And that, I remember the transformative feeling of that opening. And it was so special because I was there by myself, realizing that I had access to something that I'd never known about before. So it's pretty wonderful that I have this like very real, tangible shift to when did I start loving being in the presence of real art.
Wow. So before we dive into this subject, obviously there are so many different types of art, and some pieces, speak to different people. So I would say, growing up as I did in a very conservative South Dakota, not having small town 500, not having very sophisticated understanding. I mean, art was something that would look pretty.
Yes.
And something like, a Jackson Pollock or an abstract art would be like, well, gosh, that's just anybody can do that. That's not art. Art has to be realistic portrayals of beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's probably not an unusual.
Absolutely not. No, and you still hear kids say that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you develop your sense of an understanding that something that might even be ugly and offensive can be art?
Yeah, I think for me, it came from having the opportunity to have conversations with people. Getting to have dialogue with classmates or friends, because when you get the chance to approach a work that you don't think is beautiful, or that you think is offensive, or it evokes something in you, agitation or discomfort or bewilderment. I mean, we have a painting that's just completely white. For the longest time, it was like, I had nothing to latch onto in terms of what I understood. But when you get those chances to then conversate around these things, you realize that we all have points of understanding. And something that you might find off-putting, you're going to have reasons for thinking that. And it gives you a chance to share your own understandings of things and to be heard and valued. Our curator, Laura Burkhalter, just said the other day that when she leads tours with adults, sometimes it's so hard to get engagement because people think that, I think one of our worries is that we're going to interpret it wrong. That's why they read the label, because there's got to be one right way that I'm supposed to see this. And so people are so scared of approaching art and interpreting it and giving their viewpoints that she will start by just saying, like, what in here do you not like? Because it's so much more comfortable for some people to start talking about the things that they don't like versus, oh, I like that, and then why? It's beautiful or it's interesting. But we might be even more connected to the things that we don't like, and we might know why. And then it might create a richer conversation. But I think that the thing that changes it for a lot of people is taking those opportunities to have conversations around what you're seeing, what you're thinking, and what you're curious about.
Tell me, just talk a little bit about the difference of the healing effect personally, how you feel a healing effect from creating art versus being with art that someone else has created.
Absolutely. I think that we all, in some ways, experience uh, forms of healing from creating things, whether or not you're baking a cake or building a bookshelf. There is something that is very relaxing um, that gets us out of our regular state of mind when we're engaged in a creative practice. The idea, I mean, when I talk to people about meditation, so many people right off the bat say, like, I can't, I don't. Like, their aversion to meditation is so strong. And it's because it's hard, because our brains don't naturally just like settle down. And so, for a lot of people, you can access this state of meditation with a quieter mind to get the relaxation that you would get from meditation through a creative practice. So, for some people, it looks like gardening. For a lot of people, it can look like drawing and painting and the freedom of a creative expression.
And for some people, it can be mountain climbing. Anything you do that forces you to pay attention to this here right now. Because as you know, I mean, mindfulness is really not thinking about yesterday and tomorrow, but being right here. So some technical mountain climbing where you cannot be thinking about anything else except where your next finger is going to go is actually a mindfulness practice.
Absolutely. And just imagine too, when you can engage in those mindfulness practices, when your mind can truly be focused and in sync with your body as well, where not only is my mind focused, but my body is focused. Then just imagine like the relief and relaxation after something like that. A lot of us struggle with anxiety, and a lot of times, if we could channel our anxiety into something, we would experience a sense of relief and relaxation after that practice. And art making is just another way of doing that. And then you have something nice to show other people.
Yes. We had a similar conversation with a musician. There's obviously parallels and other creative endeavors, whether it's throwing pottery or journal writing.
Yes.
It can be the same way. You can get a healing effect from creating writing, but you can obviously also get a healing effect from reading or listening to poetry.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive a little bit more in. Let's bring up your slides here,
Yeah.
because I know you have some beautiful slides, and that'll enhance our conversation. And so, go ahead.
Yeah. So the whole focus of me, what I wanted to share with this was how do we reframe what we think a museum is and what a museum has to offer into what a museum could be. So I'm just going to ask you, why do you go to museums? If you had to answer that question.
Yes. So I would answer it. If there is an exhibition that I know is there that piqued my interest, either I read something about it and it had some, some connection to a contemporary topic or something of interest.
Awesome.
So I would say that would be the most likely way. I mean, second, going to a famous museum in another city like Paris, France, part of that is celebrity seeking, as you've heard about the Mona Lisa, you've got a chance to see Mona Lisa. So it's kind of like seeing a movie star.
I love that. And
it really is celebrity, and then the cocktail conversation bragging you get about having seen Mona Lisa, Venus de Milo.
Yeah, I think, just based on the way you described what you look for, it's experiences.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm like, I want to have these experiences. They're a memory to hold on to. It's something that you can have as a part of your history and your life, and you're looking for experiences. So a lot of us use museums for that.
Yes. That's a good way to.
Yeah. So one thing that I just want to explore is just what I think are some outdated things that museums are. Someone pointed out to me that like what a museum is and why a museum exists is because at one point there was somebody with lots of money who bought a bunch of things, and we need to keep those things safe. And like we are amassing collections, and the truth is like that's like the origin of museums. And when you said like when you first think of museums, you think of sterile. There is a lot of ideas around what a museum is that we actively have to work against all the time. And so, yes, museums are a place for collections. There is also this idea that museums are the authority on interpretation, and that I go to the museum for them to share with me this knowledge. And it's not knowledge that I can acquire elsewhere. I have to read the label, and then also access to these items. So we have these precious things, and a lot of museums will charge you money to access these items. And so really, like, this is what the role of museum for a lot of people has been. And it makes me ask the question, who does this serve? Yes, I believe in the value of art. A lot of times when I'm leading tours with children, I say, like, isn't it cool that humanity values art so much that we'll keep this safe forever? But the Mona Lisa, we promise we will keep it safe forever. And that's why we collect these things, and that's why we pay money for these things. But at the same time, what, other than being granted access to these things, what experiences are we offering?
And you're going to tell us.
Yeah. So the reason why I believe that these are the outdated versions. One, based on personal experience, you'll see a picture of me as a child dressed up for Halloween. Growing up in Des Moines, that's what I thought museums were, and that's just based on personal experience. That a museum was this authority on a hill that doled out information to other people. Also, just in the contemporary museum field, we're constantly talking now about how do we redefine what a museum is, and who are we serving and how. And then also, I just know that this is what a lot of adults, when I lead tours, this is their expectation. It is so hard to get adults to engage with me, to join in conversation, to share what they're thinking. I swear, every single time I have an adult tour, at the end, few people come up to me and tell me, like, in private, oh, I think someone told me that I didn't think she was sad. And I was like, but you didn't share that with the group. And it's because adults go to museums, and if they're being led on a tour or they're having experience, they expect to be passive receivers of information. And that's something that firsthand I experience over and over again.
Kids are much more open with just telling you what they think.
Oh my goodness, like, I wouldn't even have to really be present, and the kids could lead the entire thing. You know, they have a million interpretations, and they recognize that what they think isn't wrong, that it's just the way they see things. And you get so much out of looking at art with children, because their interpretations are just, like, so different from one another. They're so individualistic, and they're not afraid to be wrong about interpreting art. And what else? We have another slide. So these are things that I think that museums can be.
Okay.
So museums can be sites for social emotional learning. This is something that schools are really focusing on these days. I have a lot of friends who are educators, and I work with a lot of educators, partnering with them to bring groups to the museum. And one thing that we were talking about, this concept of social emotional learning, is like, this is something that should have been taught forever. That we're teaching kids how to understand and communicate their own emotions, how to understand each other's emotions, how to engage with each other socially, and using art as a catalyst for conversations around these things. Just looking at a painting and saying, how do you think this person feels? Or how does this painting make you feel? Or how do you think the artist felt while making this? That really, it is this perfect opportunity for creating empathy and understanding and learning that we all communicate differently. And so it's just this very fertile place for these really important forms of learning.
So socialization and learning emotions, learning a vocabulary that I'm talking about it, and that leads to empathy and compassion.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think too, just the nature that museums, our interpretations aren't wrong, and that you are going to see something and it's going to make you think certain things or feel certain things, and all of that is completely valid, and that the person standing next to you is going to think things and feel things, and their feelings are valid. It's unlike other places. Like at school, there are are right answers to certain things. We're trying to teach you specific things. And in an art museum, there's just so much openness and open-ended questioning and so many things that don't have answers that are just perfect for us exploring being curious people.
So what else do you think a museum can be?
A museum can be a place for experiential group meaning making. So I talked about this earlier, where that's where I think that things can change, where you can go to a museum and you can see things and think things and feel things. But once you are doing that in a group and you are sharing and you're being open about your interpretation, then you are making meaning together. And you're looking for these experiences. You want to go see the exhibition. You want to go see the Mona Lisa. And it's a whole different experience when you get to do that with someone else. And you get to say, like, what do you think about that Mona Lisa? Was this experience what we were expecting? Because then you have someone to process it with and to make meaning together about it.
Oh, it's so much smaller than I thought.
That's what I've heard. So I'm not in a hurry to see it. I hear it's so small. And then the last thing was the idea that art can be a place for mindfulness and healing. Yeah. And we started by talking about mindfulness and that, meditation or mindfulness is really just this focused attention. And it's so, I'm a meditator, and, one tool that they teach you in basic meditation is if you have trouble focusing, have a visual prop. If you focus on a candle flame or if you focus on an image. And really having that visual to have a sensory thing to attach your attention to is huge. And so just looking at art is an incredible tool for increasing mindfulness.
So it can be your visual cue to pay attention. When you're looking at art and you're aware that this can be a focus of mindfulness, how it also maybe reminds you, like meditation, when you are aware that your mind is wandering. I mean, that's what meditation is really, this exercise to teach you to recognize when your mind is wandering. And the whole focus is to bring it back. Mm-hmm. It's not to never wander, it's to recognize you are wandering.
Absolutely.
And bring it back. And so you can do that in the context of viewing art is, okay, I am here now with this object. Oh, I'm worrying about what I'm going to cook for dinner tonight. Now bring it back to this object.
Yeah, and I think, there are techniques to doing that, like giving yourself an allotted amount of time to look at a piece, or asking yourself 10 questions about one piece of art, so that you think you've seen everything about it, and you're like, okay, there's more that I can explore. Really like training yourself to spend time with that, and also avoiding that conveyor belt. You don't have to see everything.
And how do you at the Des Moines Art Center create a program to encourage mindfulness in the viewing of the art?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's a few things, and I think I've got some slides on them too. But so I was just saying we're already doing those things, and that one of the biggest issues about museums is just the narrative around it. Because all the things that we're talking about you can do at a museum, you can already do these things. I'm not changing anything by saying them. I'm just reminding people. And then on the next slide, it's up to us to make opportunities. So, creating different kinds of programming that allow people to engage in different ways. So the first photo of the woman and the child, like they're gaining a different perspective to look at this work. They're feeling comfortable in the space to engage with it in a different way. The bottom photo is a group of people from the Iowa Department for the Blind that I led a tour with, that were given the opportunity to actually touch and have that sensory way to interpret the art. So we provide, if you have any kind of specific accommodation to some accessibility needs, like you're always welcome to reach out to the Art Center, because we want you to be able to access the artwork however you need to. And then we've also got some like planned programming. So some things that we do for mindfulness and healing. We do a veterans program once a month where they focus on art making. We have a whole access department that creates healing opportunities around art, that works with different populations and focuses on just the therapeutic aspects, like just the fact that we're making art that's one group that we work with. We've started a new program called Creatively Caring, where I work with the Access Department, and we go out into the community and provide art experiences to people who are like frontline health workers, just as some respite. I think one thing too that's so powerful is that all of these things can be really fun and enjoyable, and it's just when it comes to fun, it's just about making time for it. And so sometimes just offering someone space and time for relief and fun is really, really powerful for their healing. And then we had some more things. So we just celebrated Slow Art Day. That's an international program that like hundreds of museums around the world celebrate. And it encourages people, like I was talking about that conveyor belt, like I'm going to look at this piece of art and I'm going to look at this piece of art. The average art viewer looks at a piece of art for 8 to 30 seconds. And you realize that that is not enough time to get any real information, any visual information. And so Slow Art Day was created as a way of encouraging people to take time. So people are asked to spend at least 10 minutes with one work of art. And so change your idea of I'm going to the art museum, I have to see everything there. Change it to I'm going to the art museum, I'm going to look at 3 things. I'm going to wait for 3 things to grab my attention and look very appealing. They make me curious. I'm going to walk up to them. I'm going to spend time with them. So many people walk around and say like, oh, I don't like that. I was like, just walk past those things. Let yourself be pulled to the things that make you curious, and then really spend that concentrated time. And as a person, like I started as a docent that led Slow Art Day experiences, but also as a person who has participated. Some of the best realizations I've ever had in my life, just like epiphanies, came from the slow art practice, where I'm looking at a piece of art and the things I'm thinking, I'm just like, wow, I would have never thought that thought before. And it feels like a powerful truth or like a big realization. And it's like, it's just because of this practice of like forcing myself to spend that attentive time.
So when you, as a, someone who is a museum educator, when you go to view an exhibit or a piece for yourself, not with a group, but just for yourself, do you like to know about the piece ahead of time? Do you like to read about it? I mean, I tend to be more like, okay, do I know something about the artist? I kind of want to know what they were trying to say. I do recognize that yes, I can have my own total interpretation, but I still somehow think that many pieces of art, that the artist was trying to say something, not just throwing something there randomly and waiting for somebody to come up with the explanation.
For sure. And I think that the truth is that all the ways that you want to prepare for a piece of art or learn about a piece of art are all valid. And that if you want a deeper context to experience an art with it, and researching the artist first, there's nothing wrong with that. And that would just build your excitement for seeing the piece, or it would give you a deeper understanding. If you want to challenge yourself to go into a piece blind, I mean, it's essentially like when people see films. Some people never want to see a trailer for a film. And there's people who want to see the trailer, and they also want to read articles about it. So I don't think there's a wrong way of approaching that. I do think that I say don't read the label first. Like when you walk up to a piece of art, if there's a label there, look at it first and then read the label. Just because sometimes when you hear too much interpretation, you're closing your own possibilities. I heard a quote recently that artist Marcel Duchamp said that an art piece exists in 2 places, that it is originally created by the artist and it is finished by the viewer. That an artist will have an intention, of course. They're trying to do something, but I'm an artist. I'm friends with enough artists to know that sometimes it's other people's interpretations that mean more to them. That there is something they didn't see or recognize, and they can be like, "Oh my gosh, I totally was doing that without any awareness as a subconscious thing, or it was connections that they weren't considering." And so, just because the artist has one intention doesn't mean that it's more important than the viewer's interpretation, that it's just another piece of a puzzle that we're all putting together by experiencing art as a human race.
So when you go to
I like I do both, yes.
Sometimes you do a bit of research
And-
ahead of time.
And also, like, in my profession, there's so much art for me to consume. I have to see so many things just to have an awareness of them. I mean, I have to like put it on my schedule, like go look at the new video that's up in the gallery. And so for the most part, I just like, if I'm curious about something, I learn about it. If there's an opportunity to have a training on it from one of my colleagues, I'll attend that. So really, I don't think I have a standard, like I need to learn about it before. If there's a chance for me to, I will. I won't just be like, I can't, I haven't seen it yet. Like no spoilers, like I will learn about it before. But I just like kind of let it come as it is. I mean, there's plenty of times when I see art pieces as they're being made. I walk into a space and there's an artist actively working on it. Like that's an interesting way to first experience an art piece as an unfinished, and then know that the show's supposed to open tomorrow, and it's and you just trust the process and you wish them well.
Right.
And they always get
And
done.
there's something about having a deadline.
Oh yeah.
So are there other things that you, on the slides here about
Yeah.
what you wish art museums would be, or what you
So-
hope that they will be?
Yeah, and so this is another tool that we've created. This is something that I've made, and I'm really proud of this program. It's called Being with Art, and essentially it's a tool that you can utilize in the galleries. It is a 20-minute guided audio meditation. It is voiced by myself, written by me. You go in and you can bring a smartphone and you bring headphones or earbuds, and it gives you thinking prompts to consider as you're walking through the space.
And it tells you which pieces to go to.
No, you could use this anywhere. You could take this to, I've had people take it to other museums and it works. So it is open-ended. There are prompts like, look around the space, look for a piece that makes you curious, walk towards that piece. And then like, what do you think the idea behind this work is? Just thinking prompts that help you explore. And also like there is very gentle music. I lead you through several grounding exercises. We talk about our breath. We talk about how we feel in our bodies. Because as we started this conversation, like going in an art museum, one, there's so much to take in. Two, for a lot of people, it's not a comfortable space. They didn't grow up in an art museum. They worry about their etiquette. They worry that I'm not interpreting this right. And so it means so much to me to offer this as a tool to help people that they're like, okay, this is where I'm at and this is where I'm at. And they can truly like focus on seeing the art, recognizing what they like notice in it, recognize how they respond to it, what they think, what they feel. And it's only 20 minutes long, so it's really digestible. If you have an extra half an hour in your day, the art center is always free. And so you can just make that 30 minutes, that gives you time for parking, to walk in, experience it, and then
So let's repeat that, because this is a wonderful thing about the Des Moines Art Center. It is free,
yes,
and there's very convenient parking
yes,
as well. And so with this 20-minute program, you can easily have an enjoyable lunch hour going there, and there's some nice little place to get some food
there is
And
lunch,
there's a
yeah.
nice little cafe. So last week, we offered Being with Art to cancer survivors, and I think you said that there were about 13
Mhm.
that came. And were you able to have any sort of conversation with them after the 20 minutes?
Yeah, it was. So we did like a live version. So it was me with them.
Gotcha. They
And
were not. With
It was
earbuds.
yeah.
You
So
were-
we were being with art as a group.
Yes.
So it was a different experience, but we were able to, I still had us only do several pieces, and we spent a prolonged amount of time with each piece. And we did the slow art practice of I set a timer, and we looked at the artwork pretty much in silence for 10 minutes. I set several prompts, but really gave them time to explore, and then they shared with one another the things that they noticed.
Did everyone look at the same art pieces?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we looked at 3 pieces as a group, and it was so cool to see that everyone, I mean, of all the 3, they all had, like, different people had them as their favorites. There are always going to be different things that we're attracted to in art. There's different things that we connect with, and then for them to get to share these conversations with one another, it was very fun, enjoyable, relaxing. All the things that you would think might be high pressure about. Okay, you look at this piece of art and tell me what you think. None of that was there because we were all doing that together.
Let me ask, did anyone here attend that?
Oh,
So,
hello again.
Do we have an extra microphone?
Yep.
So, Poon, you attended last week. So let's have you put the microphone up close and tell us, what was your experience?
It was interesting. The first piece we looked at, that was great because I thought, and I could, I don't know, it was more therapeutic.
Was it like a painting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The second one was, in my opinion, it was overwhelming, and you can explain that one.
Was that a painting or a sculpture?
It was mixed media piece,
Okay.
a very large scale mixed media piece.
Okay.
Yeah. And the third one, it was therapeutic, and then it was like these crazy lights were flashing.
So, I wanted to make sure that we have an exhibition on view right now called Immersive, that is multimedia, different sensories. There's lights, there's sounds, and I wanted to make sure that we got a chance to experience one of those pieces because that exhibition will be up for a short period of time. And some people said that that one was their favorite, but
Yeah, it was my favorite one because it was nice and relaxing, and these all kinds of lights keep going on.
So Poon, let me ask you, were you during the 20 minutes, were you mostly focused on the art or was your mind wandering? Were you able to use it as a bring yourself to a mindful be here now?
yeah, I would say, the second one, I couldn't do that. It was just a little too much because it was a tapestry, and then there were beads and flowers and the background. It was just a little too much for me.
So,
Tim was there too, so
I do
put
like
him on the spot.
I do like thinking though that even though that was a piece that didn't connect with you personally, that because we spent that time, that you could probably describe it really well because you had this prolonged time really looking at it and seeing all these. I mean, there's a lot of details. So for somebody with maybe like an overactive mind, their brain needs something that has. There's a lot in it.
So the last one, I was the person that saw it as two alien heads standing back to back. And if you see it, you'll see what I meant. It's like two heads back to back, and they're looking at the universe.
I love that.
So Tim, you were there. Tim, what was your experience of going through the mindfulness experience? What Mia was telling you to do, how she was encouraging you to be mindful with the pieces. How would you describe your experience?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to answer one of your questions here about was I immersed in the situation? Well, first of all, we were instructed to be immersed at the beginning, right?
Yes.
But when you sat down on your chair and started looking at the tapestry or the painting or whatever, we didn't need that instruction because you automatically was just drawn in and immersed into the situation. You lost track of the people around you. You looked at the piece and you tried to decide, what it's all about. Takes your mind off of everything. So if you're sick, for instance, I mean, if I was sick at the time, I wouldn't say that I would think about that. I'd be looking at the tapestry, relaxing my mind, relaxing my body, getting into the situation. So that's what I got out of it. Now, I didn't understand the art, and that's just me, but I gave it my best.
I mean, I think you had a really wonderful experience though. Like just being able to have that time to focus and think about something that still maybe is confusing to you or strange or out of your regular thing, like beyond what you normally spend time looking at and thinking about. We talk about like an art museum is a great place for experiences. So, it's hard if curating a show of what pieces you're going to show a group is never easy because everyone likes very different things. So that's why, it's also important to go to a museum on your own and let yourself be pulled to what attracts you.
And so you had a more traditional painting, and then you had, was it the African artist with the
She's a Jamaican artist,
Okay.
Ebony G. Patterson, and it is a giant tapestry that takes up a big wall, and it's all made out of fabric, bead sequins. And honestly, so that piece, every time I lead kids past it, we have to stop and talk about it.
Was that the one with the picture of the mother and daughter that were looking up at it?
Nope, not that one.
Not that
No,
one, but a
no.
similar sort of.
Yeah. Okay, you were thinking of the one that's out of metal. That's Ellen on Tsui. But
Yes.
this piece, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
So no, I have a picture of it actually. It's at the very end of the slideshow. But the artist, she thinks of it like a garden, and she thinks the audience is like bees. And when I take kids by it, they have to stop and look at it. Here it is.
that
Yes.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
And so is that freestanding or?
It's on the wall.
It's on the wall.
Yeah. If you get very close, you can see that the tapestry is actually like Velcroed to the back.
It would be nice to have a solid wall next time to bring it in.
Well, so the background of it is part of it. When she first had this display, she had a show, and she designed that wallpaper. And in the exhibition, she had the wallpaper covered the entire room, and I think also the ceiling. So just to think about the things that affect us. Like this feels like too much, and that's totally valid. That's absolutely valid.
So, have we covered all of the?
All the things that I
the
wanted to
things that you
explore.
want.
Yeah, I think I did also have some tips for people when they go on their own.
Okay, let's go to that. Those few slides. What's the thing?
Gonna go back. Yes. So these are things that you can do when you visit a museum that kind of engage the stuff that we've been talking about. So practicing slow looking.
I like the phrase slow looking because
Yes.
I'm very familiar with the slow cooking movement.
Oh yeah.
So instead of just slow cooking movement, which is appreciation of food that takes a while to prepare, it's not fast, it's the opposite of fast food.
Yes.
So this is slow looking.
Yes. So really, like the way you do it is just to set a timer, and 10 minutes is a good time. And when you think you've seen it all, spend more time looking for details. Another thing that you can do is question curation. A lot of people don't even think about this part, but when you're in a gallery space, recognize that all those pieces are where they are for a reason, and the curator had an intention of setting two pieces next to one another. Look at the space and wonder what dialogue they're having, what bigger story is being told in this space. It almost can feel like a game to look around the room, and then if you dig deeper, you're like, oh, everyone in this room is a woman artist. Like things you might not have noticed, or a theme like, oh, everything in here is exploring identity. Or it's exploring different materials. So, think about the curation and then try new ways of thinking. So, prepare some questions that you want to explore and then approach a piece of art and ask yourself, like, how old do I think the artist was when they made this? Or what is this artwork trying to say? Or if this artwork had a voice, what it would sound like? Or how would the artist's body physically feel as they're making this piece? You can see brush strokes. The piece that's right there is Richard Long, and it's these stacked stones in a circle. Like physically, try to tap yourself into the artist making it. I think the thing is,
And is that, did the artist create it in that space, or is it something that was fastened together that you moved into the space?
neither.
Neither.
So that piece, whenever it's installed and disassembled, it comes apart as individual stones. They're all numbered on the back. And so they have a formation that they get relaying. So it's essentially like our staff makes this art piece.
Oh, okay.
We have several pieces that are like that get reconstructed when they're put on display. But that's a question that you would ask yourself. There are so many things that when you approach a piece of art, embrace your curiosity. You don't have to know the answer. Maybe there's a staff there who knows the answer. If you're curious about something, you can research anything that you're curious about. I think that if there's a piece of art that really stumps you, like the piece that was all white, forever I was just like, why? Why is this here? And I researched the artist, and he said there's a quote from him that says, "It's not what you paint, it's how you paint." And immediately I had this understanding. And so then the next time I spent without work, I looked at the brushstrokes and I looked at the way different brushstrokes were affected by the lighting. And I realized that this isn't just a white piece of paper, that this is a white painting. And I appreciated it in a whole new way just because I gave the artist an opportunity to tell me a little bit about it by looking at them.
What would you say is in your lifetime, which, compared to some of us isn't all that long, but a particular exhibition that you just will never forget that changed you in some way?
I mean, the first one is that Cecily Brown exhibition, but let me think. I really think we had a show called Ruptures, and I think it was like 2017, and it explored. I think something that I love about art is that it can explore things that hurt us in a really safe way. That you can be really vulnerable as an artist, and you can. I mean, sometimes art can be pleased by somebody. There are artists, an artist we had named Jessica Techmeyer from Iowa who made a show about gun violence, and there are times when we feel things so deeply, and getting the opportunity just to do anything about it, whether or not you're just making sculptures, it feels like you're doing something about it. And the whole Rupture show felt like that to me. That it was pieces that all had kind of reached a breaking point. There was a piece by an artist who, it was a shirt, and the entire shirt was made out of silk, and it was covered in sewing needles, and it was so delicate, and it was exploring gun violence and youth in Chicago, and the artist interviewed their families. And so it was this beautiful testament honoring. And all the pieces, they were really beautiful and heavy, heavy stuff. And I just felt like it was such a special way of honoring all the pain that humanity can experience. It was very powerful. And we also, for that show, we partnered with Des Moines Ballet, and there was a ballet performance within there that the dancers were inspired by pieces and performed in front of them. So there was a lot of experiences that were tied up into that show that will be very memorable for me for a long time.
What I'm hearing you say is that, things that make you move, that move you.
Mhm.
And it's similar, I mean, I love growing up moving as really sad, just bawling, crying at the end. Now, clearly, I am moved, but the way you feel healed in a way by having gone through a very emotional. Unfortunately, in art, there is that the mind does recognize that this is a bit distant. This isn't my
Yes.
loved one that just died. It may remember that, and that's part of what brings the emotion. But something that has emotional intensity that you be present with.
And that's the empathy and the compassion. So we connect, even if it's not your story and it's someone else's story. We're all human enough to be able to feel for each other's stories. We all have loved ones. We all hurt in different ways, or grieve and struggle. And one thing that I think is so special about art is that it's a place where the individual really matters. So much of what we do as human race is very collective. There's a lot of really great industrious things that we've done, but art is where one person's voice is elevated to the point of that it's very important, that we're going to put it in a gilded frame and we're going to protect it forever. And so that one person can say something and we can all listen. I think it's really, really powerful.
That's beautiful. Let's open up to questions from our live studio audience. Also, those of you who are watching us live streaming, you can also submit your questions. So we'll bring the microphone up here.
Hi, we've been here about 15 years. We've not been to a museum. We go back because we've gone to Chicago, we've gone other places, and then you're right, it's amazing. And I'm an artist myself. And so he'll be over here, we need to go over here. No, You get really immersed in some of the art. And I love going to like fairs and places like that, like a art festival, and you see all these artists. And my friends were the same way. Come on, we gotta wait. No, I want to get to know every artist and see. And I will catch the shadowing. I know the words and stuff. And they're like, oh, you must be an artist because you know about some of those techniques. And this one guy, he looked so depressed that people were just going past one of his beautiful artwork. And so I got it and I said, can you tell me the story of this art? Because I can tell there's a story behind it. I see the woman's face, I see the animal underneath. And his friend was with him, goes, there's an animal, And he goes, oh my gosh, I was so depressed that I'm glad you came to me. He goes, yeah, I came to him in a dream. And it was a dream-like imagery in that art. And I bought it from him.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, it made him so happy. I got it sold, but he said everyone just went right by it and ignored it and didn't take the time to note that. And I go, it's so important that people, whether it's a museum or any kind of venue, needs to look at those kinds of things. And
You
Yeah,
definitely
appreciate
need to come to the Des Moines Art Center.
I
It
definitely,
is.
Yeah. It's free, and you can't miss this
It's free.
really cool
Oh.
exhibition we have. It's only up till the beginning of June, so.
oh, cool, definitely will.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I
and
didn't
that's
have a question,
wonderful.
just
No,
wanted to share.
Thank you for sharing that, because, I think that one of the best things that an artist asks of us as viewers is just to respond. And what does that look like? It looks like many, many different things. But, sometimes I just I tell the artist what my interpretation was, like, oh, this made me think of this. And it's, art is a conversation. And when you get the chance to actually see an artist in person and look at art in person, it's such a gift to be able to share in dialogue with them a response to their artwork.
And then give them that validation,
Mm-hmm.
that really does.
Yeah, but again, even at fairs or museums, going with other people can be a challenge because we're not going to stop and look at everything. And just know that it's okay to let yourself be pulled into things that fascinate you, and to let other people have their space to enjoy at their own pace, because it can be a very personal thing too.
It is, well, it's interesting when you talk about meditation, going through chemo and meditation therapy. Meditation did help me, but it was interesting. It was taking a painting that we have, we have a lot of religious paintings, and the LDS has a lot of beautiful paintings and artists. And there was one that I'm drawn to, and I mean, if you stare at a lump, you swear the eyes are moving, the lips are moving, but it is so calming. And that was my only, so I share with other people that are cancer survivor or going through, and they say, thank you for sharing, because it is. It's just something about it. It's like looking at somebody else, but it's someone familiar and nothing threatening. Is that
Yeah.
something?
And art is a safe thing to stare at. If it's another person, you might feel a little uncomfortable. But here's a figure, and it is a person. It's an artist. It's an artist representation. It's probably a model, and you get to have this human interaction. That's called. And thank you for sharing that. That's really beautiful.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Yeah, I got
I know a lot of very random things about the art center too. So.
a lot of times when I look at a piece, I kind of get stuck on on technique and the artist's just complete mastery of little details like finite, consistently uniform strokes, or working with metal, the manipulation of that metal to get exactly what he wants out of it. And a lot of times I don't get beyond that. Is that a common experience?
I say that it's pretty common. There's some people that's all they're looking for in work is skill technique. So that's why when they see maybe a big sloppy abstract painting, they have no connection to it. And that's pretty common. But I would say that that's a very, very beautiful and valid thing to honor and recognize when you're looking at an artwork.
I'm just awed by his ability, the artist's ability
Yeah.
to do that.
No, it's beautiful to recognize that and to have that awareness and appreciation for skill and technique, and those are going to be the things that'll attract you to a piece of art. And then you'll go to a museum with someone who will ask you what you think the conceptual idea behind it is.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the immersion exhibit.
Yes,
and
yes,
do that.
and then it'll challenge you. Yeah.
George, did you have a question?
Well, yeah, maybe just a kind of comment as much as a question, but the doc mentioned this earlier, the connection between music and art. And how do you feel about that exactly? Does music belong in a museum? Is it art in the context that you think of it as, or is it just musicians wanting to be artists? And one of the reasons I asked this question or comment is because I'm a huge fan of Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan has been pestered for 50 years to explain his songs, and the way he talks about his songs is very much the way you described artwork. People will want to know what his lyrics mean, and he'll tell them, well, I can tell you what I thought they meant when I wrote them 30 or 40 years ago, but it's changed since then. I've changed since then. How I interpret my own lyrics have changed. And furthermore, I can't really remember. but it sounds a lot like how you described an artist's perception of artwork, other forms of artwork.
Yeah, I consider musicians artists as well. I think that they're the same. I think that there's visual artists, there's dancers, there's poets, there's musicians, and I think that they're just people who make creative things. And then when we're exploring the meaning behind those things, what we're talking about it. Sometimes we're just moved to make a creative thing. I know a lot of people who are visual artists who make a painting because something moved them to make a painting, and they can't tell you why. And so just the same way with writers or songwriters or musicians, there's something that compels them. Some of them, it's because they, went to school for music and that's what's compelling them because they need to keep doing it. But there's something that moves them to make. And so I love seeing or hearing music in a museum. I've been to several multimedia shows where music is an added element. And the show we have right now, all the pieces have an audio element to them, as well as light and projection. And so it's really just all different ways of exploring creation. What can we create?
Well, thank you, Mia.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. And we will be doing some more Being with Art
Yes.
For cancer survivors. And obviously, it don't always have to be a collection of cancer survivors to do it, but we like the idea of bringing folks together in fellowship. So thank you for having done the first one, and we'll be doing some more. And thank all of you for attending. If this program is something that you think someone else would enjoy watching, it will be available on demand at the Above and Beyond Cancer YouTube channel, and it will be also available on demand at the Mercy Cancer Center website. And Mia will also provide you a link to it, so if you want to make it available through the museum. So thanks for attending, and please come and join us again next week. Again, I'm Dick Deming. I'm Medical Director of Mercy Point Cancer Center and founder of Above and Beyond Cancer. Thanks.